We start this hour with fireworks on the campaign trail. Polls show an increasingly tight race for the White House. A lot has changed and a lot will change. Former President Trump unleashing a fresh wave of attacks now against his new opponent as Vice President Kamala Harris releases her first campaign video. Here's a peek at that.
The freedom not just to get by, but get ahead. The freedom to be safe from gun violence. The freedom to make decisions about your own body. We choose a future where no child lives in poverty, where we can all afford health care, where no one is above the law. We believe in the promise of America, and we're ready to fight for it.
Trump was in Charlotte this week, his first rally since Biden dropped out of the race. He told the crowd a vote for Harris is a vote for 4 more years of dishonesty and incompetence.
So now we have a new victim to defeat. Lion Kamala Harris, Lion, L-Y-I-N apostrophe. The most incompetent and far-left vice president in American history.
All right, we've got a lot of new polling to take a look at and showing you where things are at right now. Shows Democrats getting a significant bump from the change at the top of the ticket. They're riding the wave right now. According to the latest survey from The Hill and Emerson College polling, Vice President Harris has significantly cut into President Trump's lead in several key swing states, outperforming Biden. So we start in Arizona. Take a look. Harris is polling at 44%, Trump at 49%. Biden was polling at 36%, so you can see her increase. In Georgia, Harris is at 46%. Former President Trump is up by 2 percentage points there at 48%. Biden also was polling behind that at 39%. In Michigan, Harris down by 1 percentage point. Trump polling at 46% right now. Biden was at 40%. And now to Pennsylvania. Harris is polling 6% higher than Biden there, currently at 46%. Trump is polling at 48%. And then over in Wisconsin, it's a dead heat between Harris and Trump at 47%. President Biden was polling there at 43%. That's another battleground state. All of these numbers, by the way, within the margin of error, but we are seeing some movement. Long way to go, but a lot has happened. I want to bring in now Rina Shah, political strategist and former senior congressional aide, and Jonathan Cott, partner at Capitol Counsel LLC and former communications director for Senator Chris Coons. Good morning to you both. Thanks for being here. Let me start with you, Rina, and just your reaction to some of this new polling in these critical states as it pertains, I would say, mostly to independent voters and where they're at.
I don't find it very surprising because we had seen some of similar polling prior to Biden stepping aside. And so I'm not that surprised, but I am concerned because right now we're coming off of a few days of a really, really high for Kamala Harris. There's no other way to put it. You know, that surge in fundraising, the sort of grassroots organizing that's happening, and the surge in interest, particularly in key demographics such as youth voters. That is all very important to the life and longevity of Kamala Harris's campaign. But again, this polling does indicate some vulnerabilities in the places where she needs to lock up a win and look stronger than what she seems to be performing. But you know, Marty and me, you have a be wary of the polls gal. So I would just say this, you know, this is a good start for the Harris campaign. What I'm seeing, they know the deficiencies, they know where they've got to make that up. But at the end of the day, this is a campaign about hope. It's a campaign that should be more positive and aspirational. She's already set the tone. So I think the Republicans are going to have a tougher time sort of turning their ship around and taking it to that type of messaging for their campaign.
Jonathan, what do you read into these numbers? The wind at her sails, but does that continue?
Yeah, I think it continues. She's going to go into the convention where candidates usually get a nice bump. I have a strong feeling they're going to have an excellent convention. They're going to introduce her to the country like they never have before. And she's shown she's just getting in, like feeling her groove on the campaign trail. You can see it each day. She gets better and better, and she gets more confident. And now she just gets out there to tell her story and her vision for the next 4 years, which I imagine will be different from what President Biden's vision would be. But that's what she's there for. She has to tell the voters what she thinks the next 4 years will look like. And you're already seeing in the messaging, she wants 4 more years of optimism and hope and future growing and not backwards looking like Donald Trump does. I also think Donald Trump is having a very hard time figuring out which, like, racist, misogynistic, insulting line he's going to use against her. And I think those are all going to backfire on him.
Rina, does Trump face a bigger challenge with Kamala Harris, given the fact that over the next 4 months, Americans are going to get to know her better, her strengths, her weaknesses?
I'm of the mindset that Trump does face a greater challenge, even though he is the known and she's the unknown. Regardless of her being VP, she does sort of have that a bit of that unknown quality of where does she stand? Is she going to have a vast delta between Biden's policy stances and her own? Particularly with Netanyahu in DC this week, that is one place where people are really searching for that. They're pulling back to see where is she different than Biden. So that's one thing. But the other is really more so that this is a situation where lots of American voters have lost faith in many demographics and buckets, whether you're a Gen Xer or a Gen Zer or an elder millennial like me. I think it is the duty of presidential candidates of major political parties to put forth an agenda that speaks to our daily issues. So I was actually pretty happy when Biden stepped aside, because I think it creates now an opportunity for this to be a solutions-oriented, substantive race. And it really now, look, we're sitting in summertime, but now we ought to be thinking about the fall. What happens to her after this convention? It seems that she's going in with a bit of a coronation vibe, and that I don't know if it's the best thing for the Democrats. I think it would look better if they had a real open convention with multiple contenders. But that aside, again, we need to see what she's charting for post-convention. We already need to hear it before they start the convention on the 19th of August.
Yeah, that coronation vibe, I think the argument could be made on both sides of the aisle, right? Trump always felt that way, even though the Republicans held a primary. On the Democratic side, it feels that way as well. Jonathan, I'm curious who would complement her best at the top of the ticket as those discussions are happening. There's a top tier of governors being discussed as a vice presidential running mate. Who do you think would best serve that spot?
I think there are three great candidates: Governor Roy Cooper, Governor Josh Shapiro, and Senator Mark Kelly. They all bring a different aspect to the campaign. They all have different value adds. Each of them likely brings that state back into play. I think Roy Cooper brings North Carolina and Georgia. Shapiro brings certainly Pennsylvania, but those same type of voters are the voters you need in Michigan and Wisconsin. And look, Mark Kelly is as heroic as a person as you can get. I don't know if I can say the word badass on TV, but he is that is who he is, and he has a great bio. We know everything about him. He's an astronaut. He's a Marine. His wife took a bullet, has defended the right to protect children through gun violence every day of her life after surviving that shooting. So I think all three of them have great bios and would be a great addition. I'd also point out in that polling what you're seeing. Donald Trump has a ceiling. His ceiling is around 46%. Kamala Harris only has a floor, and her floor is about 43, and it's growing now. And you're seeing that in each poll every day. She ticks up a little bit more. And I would be very worried if I was the Trump campaign with reports that RFK Jr. is thinking of getting out of the race, because without a third party in, Donald Trump is in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. As far as language, we're on cable, and I heard a member of Congress use some colorful language in a congressional hearing this week, so I feel like we're in anything goes territory. You're safe. Rina, the campaign, what does it look like on the ground between now and November? And I would argue for both sides. I mean, how has this shifted what we're going to see in that groundswell kind of grassroots effort, door knocking?
Well, I worry for the Republicans, because in the past, when I served Republicans and advised on presidential campaigns or volunteered on them when I was much younger, I will say on the Republican side, there were numerous victory offices. It was a really tight grassroots operation that was not just well knit, and close, but they were robust in many ways. Coast to coast, you could, if you called up a Republican victory office, you knew you could get all the resources you need to get out the vote. And then that's even if you were sort of a junior staffer. It felt very, again, like a meaningful, strong effort. I don't see that anymore on the Republican side. I think that's a huge vulnerability for them. That doesn't set them up for success, and also does make a third-party bid like an RFK Jr. more helpful to them in lieu of that kind of thing. On the Harris side, I don't want to jump to conclusions as yet. Look, they know what they're going for here. They're going for the independent voter. But I have also exclaimed breathlessly on this network, and I don't like to repeat myself, but Gen Z did deliver the White House for Biden and Harris in 2020. Kamala Harris knows she needs to get that youth vote, lock it up well. And that's why whoever she chooses to be a VP running mate, whether it's going into convention or at the convention, that person has got to add something more than just, being from a swing state. or just having a really charismatic personality. That person's got to have policy views that appeal to Gen Z and want to turn them out, because there's so much apathy across the board. I would just say, given my co-panelist mentioning Senator Mark Kelly, who I think is an incredible American, very patriotic, and I'm just glad he's in one of our chambers. But again, the Senate chamber needs a Democrat, so that could be a risk Democrats are taking if they pull him out of that Senate seat.
Yeah, that could complicate things a little bit down the road. Rina Shah, Jonathan Cott, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Marty.